Hello, my good friends. How are you today? May God bless you all. I will not introduce anything. You guys watch the video and feel it. Then let's evaluate together. The mist curled around San Francisco like a lover's whisper, softening the edges of the city's skyline as I stepped into the art gallery. The air was thick with the scent of jasmine and ambition, and the soft hum of a jazz piano wove through the crowd, pulling me in like a melody I couldn't resist. My heels clicked against the polished hardwood, each step a reminder that I, Diane Parker, was here, 28 years old. Black bold and a little broken, chasing a fresh start in a city that felt like a dream. The silver charm around my neck, engraved with Nikki Giovanni's words, "I am the dream and the hope," glinted under the neon lights, a gift from my mama, to remind me who I was. But tonight I wasn't just Diane from Savannah. I was someone's +1 stepping into a world I barely understood, all because of a cryptic ad I'd answered on a whim. 6 weeks ago, I'd been curled up in my tiny San Francisco apartment, surrounded by unpacked boxes and the ghosts of a breakup that still stung. Malik, my poet ex, had called our 5 years a beautiful chapter before walking away, leaving me to piece myself back together. So I'd packed up my life in Savannah, boarded a plane, and landed here with dwindling savings and a heart that felt like it had been run through a shredder. Scrolling through a forum for Black creatives one sleepless night, I stumbled on the ad companion needed for social events. Generous pay, discretion required. It sounded like a scam or a plot twist from a rom-com, but the promise of enough money to clear my debts made me click. A crisp-voiced woman called the next day, and before I knew it, I was standing in a penthouse face-to-face with Ryan Hayes. Ryan Hayes. You've probably seen his name on tech blogs or splashed across Forbes covers. 35 tall, with eyes like a stormy sea and a jawline that could cut glass. But what the headlines don't tell you is the way he moves, like he owns the room but doesn't need to prove it. His voice low and smooth as a cello had made my knees weak when he'd said, "I need someone who can hold their own, Diane. Can you?" I'd nodded, pretending I wasn't drowning in the intensity of his gaze, even as he mentioned his fiancée Elise, a European heiress who was always traveling. The job was simple, be his charming +1, no strings attached. But the way his hand brushed mine when he handed me the contract, a spark that jolted through my skin, told me this was anything but simple. Now here I was in a slinky black silk dress that hugged my curves, the fabric cool against my skin, as I navigated the gallery. The dress had arrived at my apartment that morning, courtesy of Ryan, along with a note, "Wear this tonight. R." It was bold, maybe too bold, but the way it made my brown skin glow under the lights gave me a confidence I hadn't felt in months. The crowd was a mix of tech moguls, artists, and socialites, their laughter tinkling like champagne glasses. I scanned the room, my charm necklace catching the neon glow until my eyes landed on him. Ryan stood by a massive abstract painting, all sharp lines and crimson splashes, his charcoal suit tailored to perfection. The lights cast flecks of gold across his cheekbones, and his cologne, sandalwood and spice, hit me like a slow song before I even reached him. He turned, and those sea-green eyes locked onto mine, a smile tugging at his lips that felt like it was just for me. "You made it," he said, his voice a low hum that vibrated through my chest. "Wouldn't miss it," I replied, my tone teasing to hide the way my pulse raced. "Though I'm still figuring out what I'm doing here." He stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from him. "You're here to make this bearable," he said, his gaze flickering over my dress, lingering on the curve of my shoulder. "And you're doing a damn good job already." I raised an eyebrow, channeling the sass I'd learned from my mama. "Is that in the job description, Mr. Hayes? Look good and save you from boring art talk." His laugh was soft, genuine, and it did something dangerous to my insides. "Only if you want it to be, Diane." The way he said my name like it was a secret he was savoring made my breath catch. Before I could respond, he offered his arm. "Come on, let's make them jealous." We moved through the crowd, his hand grazing the small of my back, a touch so light it shouldn't have set my skin on fire, but it did. His fingers lingered, tracing the edge of my dress, and I swore I felt the heat of them through the silk, like a spark that could ignite us both. The gallery buzzed around us, but all I could hear was the soft rustle of his suit, the faint clink of his watch, and the jazz piano weaving a spell. He introduced me to a few tech bros, their names blurring as I smiled and nodded, but my focus was on him, on the way he leaned in to whisper context about each person, his breath brushing my ear, sending shivers down my spine. "You're a natural," he murmured, as we paused by a sculpture, his voice so close it felt like a caress. "They can't take their eyes off you." I tilted my head, meeting his gaze. "Or maybe they're just wondering why you hired a stranger to play arm candy." His eyes darkened, something unreadable flickering in them. "You're not a stranger, Diane. Not anymore." The words hung between us, heavy with promise, and for a moment I forgot where we were. The air crackled, charged with something I couldn't name, but could feel in every nerve. He guided me toward the balcony, the mist outside swirling like a dream. The city lights shimmered through the fog, the Golden Gate Bridge a faint glow in the distance. The cool air kissed my skin, but it was Ryan's presence that made me shiver. We stood at the railing, close enough that our arms brushed the contact, sending a jolt through me. The jazz from inside faded, replaced by the soft hum of the city and the rhythm of our breathing. "You don't belong here," he said suddenly, his voice low, almost a confession. "Not in this fake world. You're different." I turned to face him, my charm necklace catching the moonlight. Different, how I asked, my voice softer than I meant it to be. He stepped closer, his eyes locking onto mine, intense and unguarded. "Real," he said, his hand lifting as if to touch my face, then pausing, hovering just inches away. "You're real in a way that makes everything else feel like a lie." His voice was a rough whisper, like he was fighting to keep the words in. The mist clung to his hair, tiny droplets catching the light, and I couldn't look away from the way his lips parted so close I could almost taste them. My heart pounded loud as a Nina Simone ballad, and I felt myself leaning in, drawn to him like gravity. His breath was warm, mingling with mine, and for one heart-stopping moment, I thought he'd close the gap. I wanted him to God, I wanted it, even though every rational part of me screamed that this was trouble. His hand finally moved, brushing a stray curl from my cheek, his fingers grazing my skin, leaving a trail of fire. "Diane." He whispered my name, a melody on his tongue, and I felt my knees weaken, my body swaying toward his. Then a sharp crash broke the spell, a glass shattering inside, followed by a burst of laughter. We pulled back, the moment splintering like the mist. My chest heaved, and I saw the same hunger in his eyes mirrored by my own. But before I could say anything, a figure appeared at the balcony door. Elise Vanderberg. Even in the dim light, her presence was commanding, blonde, statuesque, her emerald dress clinging to her like a second skin. Her eyes, sharp as cut glass, flicked between us, and her smile was a blade wrapped in silk. "Ryan, darling," she said, her voice smooth but laced with venom. "You didn't tell me you'd brought company." Ryan's jaw tightened, but he stepped back, the warmth between us fading. "Elise, this is Diane Parker," he said, his tone neutral. "She's helping me navigate these events." "Charming." Elise said, her gaze raking over me, lingering on my dress, my charm necklace as if sizing up a rival. "You must be quite the professional to keep up with Ryan." The word professional dripped with implication, and I felt my cheeks burn, not with shame, but with defiance. "I hold my own," I said, channeling Mama's strength, my voice steady. "Always have." Elise's smile didn't waver, but her eyes narrowed and I knew she saw me as a threat. She looped her arm through Ryan's, a possessive gesture that made my stomach twist. "We should rejoin the party," she said, tugging him inside. Ryan glanced back at me, his expression unreadable, and then he was gone, swallowed by the crowd. I stayed on the balcony, the mist cooling my flushed skin, my fingers tracing the charm at my neck. Nicky Giovanni's words echoed in my mind. "I am the dream and the hope." But what was I dreaming of? A man who belonged to someone else, a life that wasn't mine. The memory of Ryan's touch lingered, a spark that refused to fade, but so did the sting of Elise's words. I'd come to San Francisco to rebuild, not to lose myself in a game I didn't understand. As the jazz piano swelled, I straightened my shoulders, my resolve hardening. Whatever this was with Ryan, I wouldn't let it break me. But deep down, I couldn't shake the question burning in my chest. Could I trust my heart with a man who was already promised to another? And why did I want to so badly? If this foggy night sparked your heart, smash that subscribe button and comment "True Love" to follow Diane's journey. The San Francisco skyline glittered like a promise. I wasn't sure I could trust, its lights piercing the fog as I stepped into the ballroom of the Fairmont Hotel. Crystal chandeliers hung above like frozen fireworks, casting prisms across the marble floor, and the air was thick with the scent of orchids and expensive perfume. My red velvet dress clung to my curves, its deep hue making my brown skin glow under the golden glow, and the silver charm necklace at my throat, engraved with Nicky Giovanni's "I am the dream and the hope" felt like an anchor grounding me in a room full of strangers who moved like they owned the world. I was Diane Parker, 28, a Savannah girl trying to carve out a new life in this city. But tonight, I was Ryan Hayes's +1, and the weight of that role pressed against my chest like a warning. It had been 2 weeks since that night at the art gallery where Ryan's touch had lit a spark I couldn't extinguish, and Elise's icy stare had reminded me of the lines I wasn't supposed to cross. I'd spent those weeks replaying every moment, the way his fingers had grazed my back, the almost kiss under the mist, the way his voice saying my name felt like a song I wanted to hear on repeat. But I'd also heard Mama's voice in my head, steady as ever. "Don't lose yourself for a man who's already taken baby." I'd taken this job to pay my bills, to start fresh after Malik shattered my heart, not to fall for a billionaire with a fiancée. Yet here I was, stepping into another glitzy event, my pulse racing at the thought of seeing Ryan again. The ballroom buzzed with San Francisco's elite tech moguls in tailored suits, influencers in designer gowns, their laughter sharp as glass. A string quartet played softly, the notes weaving through the hum of conversation, and I scanned the crowd, my charm catching the light. Then I saw him. Ryan stood near the bar, his navy suit hugging his frame, the top button of his shirt undone, revealing a sliver of tanned skin that made my breath hitch. His sea-green eyes found mine across the room, and a slow smile spread across his face like he'd been waiting for me. The air shifted, charged with something that made my skin tingle, and I felt the pull of him, magnetic and dangerous. "Diane." A familiar voice broke through my haze, and I turned to see Jasmine Carter, my best friend since our Savannah State days, weaving through the crowd. Her locks were swept into a high bun, and her mustard-yellow jumpsuit popped against her deep skin. Jasmine was a painter fiercely independent, and the only person who could call me out and make me laugh in the same breath. "Girl, you look like you stepped out of a Beyoncé video," she said, pulling me into a hug. "But what's with this billionaire side hustle? You out here living a rom-com or what?" I laughed, the tension in my shoulders easing. "More like a drama with no script," I said, glancing at Ryan, who was now shaking hands with a silver-haired man, his eyes flicking back to me. "I'm just trying to keep my head above water." Jasmine raised an eyebrow, following my gaze. "Uh-huh. And that man's looking at you like you're the only water he's thirsty for. Spill the tea, Di." Before I could answer, a young woman bounded up her braids adorned with gold beads that clinked softly. "Diane, you made it?" Maya Jasmine's 19-year-old sister and a San Francisco State art student grinned wide. "This place is wild. Did you see the dessert table? It's like a sculpture." I smiled, grateful for their energy. "I'm more focused on surviving the night," I said, smoothing my dress. "These people are a lot." Jasmine snorted. "They're extra, but you're holding your own. Just watch out for that fiancé. I heard she's got claws." As if on cue, Ryan approached his presence, cutting through the noise like a blade. "Diane," he said, his voice a low rumble that sent a shiver down my spine. "You look—" He paused, his eyes tracing the line of my dress, lingering on the curve of my hip. "Stunning." My cheeks warmed, but I kept my tone light. "You clean up pretty well yourself, Hayes. What's the game plan tonight?" He stepped closer, his cologne cedar and musk wrapping around me like a warm embrace. "Stay close," he said, his hand brushing my elbow, a touch so fleeting it shouldn't have made my heart race. But it did. His fingers lingered, grazing the bare skin of my arm, and I felt a spark like static electricity crackling between us. And maybe save me from a few boring conversations. I smirked, trying to ignore the way his touch lingered in my veins. "That's gonna cost you extra." His laugh was soft, intimate, like it was just for me. "Name your price." The words were playful, but his eyes held something deeper, something that made my breath catch. We moved through the ballroom, his hand resting lightly on my lower back, the heat of his palm seeping through the velvet. The quartet's music swelled a haunting cello line that echoed the tension building inside me. Ryan introduced me to donors, his voice smooth as he spun stories about his tech empire, but I caught him stealing glances at me, his gaze lingering on my lips, my collarbone, the charm at my throat. Each look was a question, a challenge, and I felt myself leaning into it, even as Mama's warning echoed in my mind. At a quiet moment, we slipped behind a velvet curtain near the bar, the fabric muffling the party's noise. The space was dim, lit only by a flickering sconce, and the air felt charged like a storm about to break. Ryan stood close, too close, his suit brushing my dress, the soft rustle a whisper of danger. "You're stealing the show tonight," he said, his voice low, almost a growl. His hand lifted, hovering near my cheek, then settled on my wrist, his thumb tracing slow circles over my pulse point. The touch was electric, sending a current through me, and I felt my breath hitch, my body swaying toward his. "Ryan," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "We're playing with fire here." But my words lacked conviction, drowned out by the way his thumb moved, deliberate, igniting every nerve. "Maybe I want to get burned," he murmured, his eyes locking onto mine, dark with hunger. He leaned in, his breath warm against my ear cedar and musk enveloping me. "I can't stop thinking about you, Diane. That night on the balcony. I should have kissed you." His voice was a low hum, like the bass line of a jazz tune vibrating through my chest, and I felt my knees weaken, my resolve crumbling. I tilted my head, our lips inches apart, the sconce's light casting shadows across his jaw. My heart pounded loud as a Nina Simone crescendo, and I wanted to close the gap, to taste the promise in his words. But before I could, a sharp voice cut through the haze. "Well, isn't this cozy?" Elise stepped into the alcove, her emerald eyes glinting like a predator's. Her blonde hair was swept into a chignon, and her silver gown shimmered, making her look like a statue come to life. "Diane was it," she said, her smile venomous. "You're quite the accessory for Ryan tonight." The word stung, but I straightened, channeling the strength of every black woman who'd raised me. "I'm nobody's accessory," I said, my voice steady, my charm necklace catching the light like a beacon. I'm here because I choose to be. Elise's smile tightened her gaze, flicking to Ryan, who'd stepped back. His jaw clenched. "Careful, darling," she said to him, her tone dripping with warning. "People talk, and they're already whispering about your little companion." She turned to me, her voice dropping. "You're temporary, Diane. A pretty distraction. Don't fool yourself into thinking you belong in our world." The words hit like a slap, but I refused to flinch. I thought of Nikki Giovanni's ego tripping the way her words lifted me up. I am so perfect, so divine. I don't need your world, I said, my voice rising clear as a bell. I've got my own, and it's more real than anything you're selling. Elise's eyes narrowed, but she said nothing, turning on her heel and gliding back to the party. Ryan started to speak, but I held up a hand, my heart racing with a mix of anger and defiance. "Don't," I said, stepping past him, the curtain swishing behind me. "I need air." I pushed through the crowd, the quartet's music fading as I reached the hotel's terrace. The fog was thicker now, wrapping the city in a dreamy haze, and I leaned against the railing, my fingers tracing the charm at my neck. Elise's words echoed, but so did Ryan's. "I should have kissed you." I wanted to believe him, to trust the fire in his touch, but the reality of his engagement loomed like a shadow. I'd come to San Francisco to find myself, not to lose my heart to a man I couldn't have. Then I heard footsteps, and Jasmine appeared, her expression a mix of concern and sass. "Di, what happened? You look like you just went 10 rounds with a dragon." I sighed, the fog cooling my flushed skin. Elise happened. She called me a distraction, Jazz. And Ryan, he's got me all twisted up. Jasmine crossed her arms. "That man's trouble, Di. I get it, he's fine, and he's looking at you like you're his whole world. But he's got a fiancé and a whole lot of baggage. You deserve better." "I know," I said, but my voice wavered, betraying the part of me that wanted to run back to Ryan to feel his hands on me again. But when I'm with him, it's like I'm alive in a way I haven't been since Malik. Jasmine softened, touching my arm. "Then figure out what's real, but don't let him or her dim your light." As I nodded, my phone buzzed. A text from Maya, who'd been mingling inside Di, overheard something. Elise and Ryan's engagement. "It's tied to a huge tech deal. Sounds shady. Call me." My heart sank, the fog closing in. Was Ryan playing me, or was there more to this than I knew? One thing was clear, I wasn't backing down. I'd face Elise, Ryan, and whatever this city threw at me, because I was Diane Parker and I was nobody's distraction. The air in Savannah was heavy with the scent of magnolias, and memory wrapping around me like a warm embrace as I stepped onto the cobblestone street. Live oaks draped with Spanish moss arched overhead, their shadows dancing under the gaslights, and the distant hum of a trumpet from a nearby square felt like a heartbeat I'd forgotten. I was home, back in the city that had raised me, but I wasn't the same Diane Parker who'd left for San Francisco 6 months ago. That Diane had been heartbroken, running from the ruins of a love that no longer fit. This Diane, 28, black and still finding her way, was tangled in something new, something dangerous with Ryan Hayes, a man whose touch lingered on my skin like a song I couldn't stop humming. It had been a week since the Fairmont ballroom, since Elise's venomous words had cut me down to size, calling me a temporary distraction. Her accusation stung, but it was Maya's text that kept me up at night. Ryan's engagement to Elise was tied to a massive tech deal, a business arrangement that made my heart question everything. Was Ryan playing me, using me to fill a void while he stayed tethered to her? Or was there truth in the way he looked at me like I was the only thing that mattered? I'd fled to Savannah to clear my head, to reconnect with the roots that grounded me. But the memory of his hand on my wrist, his breath against my ear, followed me like a ghost. I adjusted the white linen dress that skimmed my curves, its soft fabric a contrast to the humidity clinging to my skin. The silver charm necklace at my throat, engraved with Nicky Giovanni's "I am the dream and the hope," caught the moonlight, a reminder of Mama's strength and my own. I'd come to Forsyth Park for a community jazz night, a tradition I'd loved growing up, where locals gathered under the stars to celebrate music and stories. The square was alive with laughter, the clink of mason jars filled with sweet tea and the soulful wail of a saxophone that made my chest ache with nostalgia. I spotted Mama in this crowd, her graying braids swept into a bun, waving me over with a smile that could fix anything. "Baby, you look like you're carrying the world," she said, pulling me into a hug that smelled of lavender and home. "What's got you so heavy?" I sighed, settling onto a blanket beside her. "Just trying to figure out who I am in this new life, Mama." "San Francisco's complicated." She raised an eyebrow, her eyes sharp. "Complicated, or that billionaire boy you mentioned? Don't think I didn't notice how you lit up talking about him." I laughed, but it was shaky. "Ryan's not the answer to my problems, but he's got me feeling things I don't know how to handle." Mama squeezed my hand, her charm bracelet jingling. "Follow your heart, Diane, but don't let it lead you somewhere your soul can't follow." Before I could respond, a familiar voice called my name. "Dee, is that you?" Malik Jackson stepped into the light. His dreads pulled back, his warm brown eyes crinkling with a smile that used to be my whole world. At 30, he was still the poet I'd fallen for his spoken word performances, a fixture in Savannah's art scene. He wore a loose linen shirt, the sleeves rolled up, and the sight of him stirred memories of late-night poetry readings and slow dances in his tiny apartment. "Malik," I said, standing my heart, doing a strange flip. "Didn't expect to see you here." He hugged me, his arms strong and familiar, his scent sandalwood and ink, pulling me back to a simpler time. "Couldn't miss jazz night," he said, his voice a smooth drawl. "You look good, Di. Like you're carrying a little of that big city shine." I smiled, brushing a curl from my face. "Trying to. What about you? Still breaking hearts with your poetry, only the ones that need breaking," he teased, but his eyes softened, searching mine. "You back for good or just visiting?" "Just visiting," I said, but the words felt heavy, like I was closing a door I wasn't ready to shut. We chatted, the music swirling around us, and for a moment, I felt like the old Diane, the one who'd loved Malik before he decided our dreams were headed in different directions. But then my phone buzzed, and Ryan's name flashed on the screen, shattering the moment like a dropped glass. "Meet me at the Bohemian Club, 8 p.m. I need to see you." My pulse quickened, a mix of excitement and dread. The Bohemian Club was a tucked-away jazz spot in Savannah's historic district, all dim lights and velvet vibes. Ryan here. In my city, I glanced at Malik, who was watching me with a knowing look, and Mama, who raised an eyebrow but said nothing. "I gotta go," I said, hugging them both. "I'll call you later." The club was a world of its own, its brick walls lined with vintage posters, the air thick with the scent of bourbon and candle wax. A piano played a sultry rendition of Nina Simone's "My Baby Just Cares for Me," and the crowd was small, intimate, their murmurs blending with the music. I spotted Ryan in a corner booth, his charcoal blazer open, a glass of whiskey in his hand. His sea-green eyes lit up when he saw me, and he stood his presence, commanding the room without trying. "Diane," he said, his voice a low rumble that sent a shiver through me. "You came. You didn't give me much choice," I said, sliding into the booth, my dress catching the candlelight. "What are you doing in Savannah, Ryan?" He leaned forward, his elbows on the table, close enough that I could see the flecks of gold in his eyes. "I couldn't stop thinking about you," he said, his voice raw, unguarded. That night at the Fairmont, I messed up. I should have told Elise to back off. I raised an eyebrow, my charm necklace glinting. You think one apology fixes this? I'm not your side piece, Ryan. I deserve better than being caught in your engagement drama. He flinched, but his gaze didn't waver. You're right. You deserve everything, and I'm trying to give it to you. His hand reached for mine, stopping just short, his fingers hovering the space between us. Electric. I'm ending things with Elise. It's complicated business, family, but I'm doing it. For you. My heart stuttered, but doubt lingered sharp as a blade. For me, or for you? I asked, my voice steady, despite the storm inside. Maya told me about the tech deal. Is this just a game to you? His jaw tightened and he closed the distance, his hand finally taking mine. His thumb tracing slow, deliberate circles over my knuckles. The touch was fire spreading warmth through me, and I felt my breath catch my body, betraying my resolve. It's not a game, he said, his voice a low growl like he was fighting to keep control. You're the only thing that feels real, Diane. I'm here in your city because I can't stay away. The piano shifted to a slower, sultrier tune, and Ryan stood offering his hand. Dance with me. He said, not a question, but a plea. I hesitated, Mama's warning echoing, but the pull of him was too strong. I took his hand, his grip firm, and he led me to the small dance floor, the candlelight casting shadows across his face. We moved together, his hand settling on my waist, his fingers splaying across the small of my back, the linen of my dress, no barrier to the heat of his touch. The music wrapped around us, a velvet cocoon, and I felt every point of contact, his chest, brushing mine, his breath against my temple, the soft scrape of his stubble as he leaned closer. You're killing me, Diane. He murmured, his voice a rough whisper, his lips grazing my ear. His hand slid lower just enough to make my pulse race, and I tilted my head, our eyes locking the air between us thick with want. The candles flickered, painting his face in gold, and I felt myself falling, drawn to the intensity in his gaze. His lips hovered over mine so close I could taste the bourbon on his breath, and then he kissed me, slow, deliberate, like he was memorizing every second. His mouth was warm, urgent, a melody that drowned out the piano, and I melted into him, my hands gripping his blazer, the world fading until it was just us. The kiss deepened his tongue, brushing mine, a spark that ignited every nerve, and I felt alive, electric, like I was the dream and the hope all at once. But then a familiar voice shattered the moment. Malik stood at the edge of the dance floor, his eyes wide with hurt. The music seemed to falter, and I pulled back my lips, tingling, my heart pounding. Ryan's hand tightened on my waist, possessive, but I stepped away, the weight of Malik's gaze and Ryan's kiss colliding like a storm. Malik, I started, but he shook his head, his expression a mix of betrayal and resignation. You don't owe me anything, he said, his voice low. But you deserve someone who's all in, D, not half in. He turned and walked out the door, swinging shut behind him. Ryan started to speak, but his phone buzzed, the screen lighting up with Elise's name. Reality crashed back, cold and sharp. I need to go, I said, my voice trembling, and I fled the club, the humid night air hitting me like a slap. The memory of Ryan's kiss burned, but so did Malik's words, and the truth I couldn't ignore. I was falling for a man who wasn't free, and I didn't know if I could trust him or myself to survive it. The Savannah night was a tapestry of moonlight and secrets, the air thick with the scent of river water and honeysuckle as I walked beneath the ancient live oaks. Their branches, draped in Spanish moss, swayed like whispers of the past, and the distant strum of a street busker's guitar echoed the ache in my chest. I was Diane Parker, 28. A black woman caught between the life I'd left behind and the one pulling me forward. My heart, a battlefield where Ryan Hayes and Malik Jackson waged a war I didn't know how to end. The silver charm necklace at my throat, engraved with Nikki Giovanni's "I am the dream and the hope," felt heavier tonight, a reminder of the strength Mama had instilled in me, but also a question. Was I dreaming of love or chasing a mirage? It had been 2 days since the jazz club, since Ryan's kiss had set my world ablaze, his lips a melody that still hummed in my veins. But Malik's hurt eyes and Elisa's name flashing on Ryan's phone had doused that fire with cold reality. I'd run from the club, from both men, needing space to breathe, to remember who I was before San Francisco, before Ryan made me feel like I could be everything. Savannah was supposed to be my refuge, a place to reconnect with my roots, but instead it was stirring up ghosts, Malik, my past, and the question of whether I could trust Ryan to be more than a billionaire with a fiancée. I'd spent the morning at a community poetry reading in a historic Savannah square, the cobblestones warm under my sandals, the air alive with the rhythm of spoken word. I'd read Nikki Giovanni's choices, my voice steady as I spoke of making my own path, and the crowd's applause had felt like a balm. Mama had been there, her proud smile a lighthouse, but she'd seen the shadows in my eyes. "You can't run from your heart, baby," she'd said, her hand squeezing mine, "but you can choose what it's worth fighting for." Now as dusk settled, I wandered toward the riverfront, my yellow sundress catching the breeze, my charm necklace glinting under the gaslights. I needed to clear my head to untangle the mess of Ryan's promises and Malik's pull. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. I heard my name soft and familiar, and turned to see Malik leaning against a wrought iron railing, his dreads loose, his linen shirt open at the collar. The moonlight painted his brown skin in silver, and his eyes held a warmth that tugged at my heart. "Di," he said, stepping closer, his voice a smooth drawl that felt like home. "You avoiding me?" I sighed, tucking a curl behind my ear. "Not you, Malik. Just everything." He nodded, his gaze searching mine. "Saw you at the poetry reading today. You were fire up there like the old days. Made me miss us." His words were soft, but they hit hard, stirring memories of late nights, writing verses together, his laughter filling the gaps in my soul. I looked away, the river reflecting the stars, like scattered dreams. "We're not those people anymore," I said. But my voice wavered, betraying the part of me that wondered if I could go back. Malik stepped closer, his scent sandalwood and ink wrapping around me like a memory. "Maybe not," he said, his hand lifting to brush my arm, his fingers grazing my skin, warm and deliberate. The touch was gentle, familiar, and I felt a pull like stepping into a song I knew by heart. "But you're still you, Di. You don't need that fancy world out west. You belong here with people who see you." His words were a lifeline, but they also stung, reminding me of the doubts Elise had planted. I opened my mouth to respond, but a shadow moved in the corner of my eye, and I turned to see Ryan striding toward us, his blazer open, his sea-green eyes stormy under the gaslights. My breath caught the air crackling with tension as he stopped a few feet away, his gaze flicking from Malik to me. "Diane Ryan," said, his voice low, controlled, but laced with something raw. "I've been looking for you." Malik's hand dropped, his posture stiffening. "And you are?" he asked, his tone cool, protective. Ryan's jaw tightened, but he kept his eyes on me. "Someone who needs to talk to her," he said, then softened. "Please, Diane. 5 minutes." I glanced at Malik, whose expression was a mix of frustration and resignation. "Go," he said, stepping back. "But remember what I said, Di. You're enough right here." He walked away, his silhouette blending into the night, leaving me with Ryan, and a heart that felt like it was splitting in two. Ryan closed the distance, his cologne cedar and musk, hitting me like a wave. "I'm sorry about the club," he said, his voice rough like he'd been carrying the weight of that night. "I didn't mean to put you in the middle of this." I crossed my arms, my charm necklace catching the light. "Then why am I here? Ryan, why are you here in Savannah chasing me when you've got Elise waiting back in San Francisco?" He ran a hand through his hair, the moonlight highlighting the strain in his features. "Because I'm done pretending," he said, stepping closer, his eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that stole my breath. "Elise and I, it's been over for months, Diane. The engagement is a contract, a way to keep my family's company afloat, but I'm ending it. I walked away from a deal worth millions today, just to be here to tell you I want you. Only you." My heart pounded, Nikki Giovanni's words echoing. I am the dream and the hope, but doubt clung to me like the moss overhead. "Words are easy, Ryan," I said, my voice trembling. "You say you're choosing me, but what happens when the next call from Elise comes, or when your family tells you I'm not enough for their world?" He reached for my hand, his fingers intertwining with mine, his touch a spark that raced through me. "You're more than enough," he said, his voice a low growl, fierce and unguarded. "You're everything." He pulled me closer, his other hand settling on my waist, his thumb brushing the curve of my hip through the sundress. The contact was electric, igniting every nerve, and I felt my resolve waver, my body leaning into his warmth. The gaslights flickered, casting golden flecks across his face, and the busker's guitar strummed a slow, soulful tune, like it was playing just for us. Ryan's breath was warm against my cheek, his lips hovering, a question in his eyes. "Tell me to stop," he whispered, his voice rough, like he was fighting himself as much as I was. "Tell me you don't feel this." But I couldn't. The truth was, I felt it, every spark, every pulse, every note of this dangerous melody. I tilted my head, our lips inches apart, and then his phone buzzed, the screen lighting up with Elise's name. The moment shattered and I stepped back, my chest heaving, the river's hum filling the silence. "I can't do this," I said, my voice breaking. "Not until you're free, Ryan. Really free." He nodded, his expression torn, but he didn't argue. "I'll prove it to you," he said, his voice a vow. "I'm not giving up." I turned and walked away, the moss swaying above my charm necklace, cool against my skin. But as I reached the end of the street, my phone buzzed with a voicemail from Jasmine, her voice urgent. "Di, it's bad. Elise is spreading rumors online, saying you're trying to wreck Ryan's engagement for clout. People are eating it up. Call me." My stomach dropped, the night closing in. Elise wasn't just fighting for Ryan, she was trying to destroy me. And yet the memory of Ryan's touch, his words, "Your everything," burned brighter than her lies. I thought of Mama, of the poetry reading, of the strength I'd found in my own voice. I wasn't backing down, not from Elise, not from Ryan, and not from the woman I was becoming. But as I headed toward Mama's house, the question lingered. Could I fight for a love that might break me? Or was Malik right? Was my home here in the world I already knew? The San Francisco night pulsed with neon and possibility. The city's heartbeat syncing with my own as I stepped into the tech conference's grand hall at Moscone Center. The air shimmered with the buzz of innovation screens flashing AI demos, the clink of champagne flutes, and the electric hum of ambition. My emerald satin dress hugged my curves, its deep green making my brown skin glow under the LED lights, and the silver charm necklace at my throat, engraved with Nikki Giovanni's "I am the dream and the hope," felt like a shield, a reminder of the fire Mama had passed down to me. I was Diane Parker, 28, a black woman who'd come to this city to rebuild. But tonight, I was walking into a battlefield with Elise Vanderberg's lies and Ryan Hayes's promises, threatening to unravel everything. It had been 3 days since Savannah, since Ryan's vow by the river had set my heart ablaze. His touch, a spark I couldn't shake. But Elise's rumors spread across social media, painting me as a gold-digging homewrecker, had followed me back to San Francisco like a storm cloud. Jasmine's voicemail had lit a fire in me, not of shame, but of defiance. I wasn't the temporary distraction Elise wanted the world to see. I was a woman with dreams, with roots in Savannah's poetry and jazz, and I was done letting her define me. Tonight's event, a fundraiser for tech education, was my chance to face her, to face Ryan, and to decide what I was willing to fight for. The hall was a sea of sleek suits and glittering gowns, the crowd a mix of Silicon Valley titans and influencers chasing clout. A DJ spun a smooth electronic beat, its bass line thrumming through the floor, and I scanned the room, my charm catching the neon glow. Jasmine was by my side, her burgundy jumpsuit popping her locks, swept into a crown. "You got this, Di," she said, squeezing my arm. "Elise can throw shade, but you're a whole damn sunrise." I smiled, her words steadying me. "Thanks, Jazz. Just keep me from throwing hands if she comes for me." She laughed, but her eyes were sharp. "No promises. But Maya's got intel. She's been eavesdropping on the tech bros." Maya, Jasmine's 19-year-old sister, bounded up her braids, swinging her phone clutched like a weapon. "Di, you're not gonna believe this," she whispered, her voice low. "I overheard some interns at Ryan's company. He's been fighting with his board to ditch a deal with Elise's family. Like millions on the line. People are saying he's doing it for you." My heart skipped Ryan's words from Savannah echoing, "You're everything." But doubt lingered sharp as the neon cutting through the hall. Was he really choosing me, or was this another move in a game I didn't understand? Before I could process, I saw him, Ryan Hayes, standing by a futuristic display, his black suit tailored to perfection, his sea-green eyes finding mine like a beacon. His smile was slow, intimate, and it sent a shiver through me like a melody I couldn't resist. "Diane," he said, crossing the room, his voice a low rumble that drowned out the DJ. "You look—" His gaze traced my dress, lingering on the curve of my shoulder, the charm at my throat. "Like you're about to steal the whole damn show." I raised an eyebrow, channeling Mama's sass to mask the way my pulse raced. "Careful, Hayes. Flattery's not gonna fix this mess." His smile faded, his eyes serious. "I know. I'm trying, Diane. I need you to believe that." He stepped closer, his cologne cedar and musk wrapping around me, and his hand brushed my elbow, a touch so light it shouldn't have set my skin on fire. But it did. His fingers lingered, grazing my arm, and I felt a spark like a circuit sparking to life, pulling me toward him despite everything. Before I could respond, the crowd parted, and Elise swept in like a queen claiming her court. Her silver gown shimmered her blonde hair, a sleek curtain, and her emerald eyes glinted with malice. "Diane," she said, her voice honeyed but sharp, loud enough for nearby heads to turn. "I didn't expect to see you here stirring up more drama." The word landed like a slap, and the crowd hushed, sensing a spectacle. Jasmine tensed beside me, but I held up a hand, my charm necklace catching the light like a defiance. "I'm not here for drama, Elise," I said, my voice clear, steady. "I'm here to support a cause. Maybe you should try it sometime." A murmur rippled through the crowd, and Elise's smile tightened her gaze, flicking to Ryan, who stood rigid, his jaw clenched. "Support," she said, stepping closer, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "You're a nobody who thinks she can steal what's mine. Ryan's engagement isn't a game you can win, sweetheart." The word nobody hit hard, but I thought of Nikki Giovanni's ego tripping. The way her words lifted me, "I am so perfect, so divine." I straightened my eyes, locking onto Elise's. "I'm not stealing anything. I said, my voice rising, carrying over the crowd. I'm Diane Parker, a black woman with dreams bigger than your lies. I don't need your world, Elise, because I've got my own built on poetry jazz and a legacy you'll never understand. So keep your rumors. They can't touch me. The hall erupted in applause, strangers nodding some raising glasses, and Jasmine whispered, "That's my girl." Ryan's eyes shone with something like awe, but Elise's face twisted, her composure cracking, and she opened her mouth to retort, but Ryan stepped forward, his voice cutting through the noise. "Enough," he said, his tone sharp, commanding. "Elise, we're done. I ended the deal with your family this morning. The engagement's over. I'm not playing your games anymore." The crowd gasped, and Elise froze her eyes wide. "You're throwing away everything for her," she hissed, pointing at me. "She's nothing." Ryan turned to me, his gaze steady, unwavering. "She's everything." He took my hand, his fingers intertwining with mine. His touch a lifeline, warm and firm, sending a jolt through me. "Diane, I should have done this sooner. I'm sorry it took so long." My heart pounded, the neon lights blurring as tears pricked my eyes. The crowd watched, riveted, but it was just us. His hand in mine, his voice a vow. "I love you," he said, soft but clear, and the words landed like a melody, like Nina Simone singing, "I put a spell on you. I'm choosing you no matter what it costs." Elise let out a strangled sound and stormed out the crowd, parting like a wave. Jasmine and Maya whooped, but I barely heard them, my focus on Ryan, on the way his thumb brushed my knuckles, a silent promise. I wanted to speak, to tell him I felt it too, but the words caught in my throat, overwhelmed by the weight of his choice, the fire in his eyes. "Let's get out of here," he said, his voice low, urgent, and I nodded, letting him lead me through the hall, past the stunned faces, the whispers. We slipped out to a rooftop garden, the city sprawling below, its lights twinkling like stars. The air was cool, scented with jasmine, and the distant hum of traffic was a soft backdrop to the pounding of my heart. Ryan pulled me close, his hands framing my face, his fingers tracing my cheekbones, leaving trails of heat. The neon from the city below cast flecks of blue and pink across his face, and his eyes held a hunger that mirrored my own. I meant every word he said, his voice rough like he was baring his soul. "I love you, Diane. I'm yours if you'll have me." My breath hitched, and I leaned into his touch, the warmth of his hands grounding me. "I'm scared," I admitted, my voice trembling. "This world, your world, it's not mine. But when I'm with you, I feel like I could be anything." "You already are," he said, his lips curving into a smile that made my knees weak. He leaned in, his breath warm against my lips, and kissed me slow, deep, a kiss that tasted of courage and promises. His mouth moved with mine, urgent yet tender, and I felt every note of it like a jazz solo soaring into the night. His hands slid to my waist, pulling me closer, the satin of my dress, no barrier to the heat of his touch, and I melted into him, my fingers tangling in his hair, the city fading until it was just us. When we pulled back, breathless, his forehead rested against mine, his breath ragged. "I'll spend every day proving I'm worth it," he whispered, his voice a vow, and I smiled, tears spilling over, knowing I was falling, but for once, not afraid. As we stood there, wrapped in each other, my phone buzzed, Jasmine, probably ready to celebrate. But I ignored it, my focus on Ryan, on the future we might build. Elise was gone, but her shadow lingered, and I knew this wasn't the end. There'd be more battles, more doubts, but with Ryan's hand in mine, I felt ready. I was Diane Parker, the dream and the hope, and I was writing my own story, one kiss, one choice, one heartbeat at a time. The Miami night was a symphony of stars and sea, the ocean's rhythm a soft pulse against the shore as I stood on the beach, the sand warm beneath my bare feet. Moonlight spilled across the waves, silver and endless, and the air carried the scent of salt and night-blooming jasmine, wrapping me in a dream I wasn't sure I deserved. My white chiffon dress flowed in the breeze, its hem brushing my ankles, and the silver charm necklace at my throat, engraved with Nicky Giovanni's "I am the dream and the hope," caught the lunar glow, a beacon of the strength Mama had given me. I was Diane Parker, 28, a black woman who'd crossed cities and heartbreaks to find herself, and tonight I was here with Ryan Hayes on the edge of a future that felt as vast and uncertain as the sea before me. It had been a week since the showdown in San Francisco, since my speech had silenced Elise, and Ryan had declared his love, his hand in mine, a vow that still echoed in my bones. The news of his broken engagement had spread like wildfire online, with headlines praising his bold move and others whispering about the mystery woman who'd changed everything. I'd seen the posts, the comments, some calling me a queen, others echoing Elise's venom, but I'd held my head high, grounded by Jasmine's cheers and Mama's wisdom. Ryan had invited me to Miami, promising a getaway to find our rhythm, and I'd agreed, not because I needed his world, but because I wanted to see if we could build one together. The beach was private, a secluded stretch Ryan had arranged lined with flickering lanterns that cast golden pools across the sand. A table waited nearby, draped in white linen, surrounded by hibiscus flowers, their petals vibrant against the night. The sound of a distant steel drum floated on the breeze, a soft counterpoint to the waves, and I felt a peace I hadn't known in months. I'd come so far from Savannah's jazz nights, to San Francisco's neon battles, from Malik's safe harbor to Ryan's uncharted waters, and every step had shaped me into the woman standing here, unafraid to dream. Diane Ryan's voice called low and warm, pulling me from my thoughts. He stepped onto the beach, his linen shirt open at the collar, his dark hair tousled by the wind. The moonlight carved shadows across his sea-green eyes, and his smile, slow intimate, made my heart skip like a Nina Simone ballad hitting its sweetest note. He carried 2 glasses of sparkling water, the bubbles catching the light, and handed me one. His fingers brushing mine, a spark that sent warmth racing through me. "You went all out," I said, gesturing to the lanterns, the table, my voice teasing to hide the flutter in my chest. "Trying to impress me. Hayes." He stepped closer, his cologne cedar and citrus mingling with the salty air. "Is it working?" he asked, his voice a playful rumble, but his eyes held something deeper, something that made the night feel infinite. I smiled, sipping the drink, the bubbles sharp on my tongue. "Maybe, but I'm not that easy to win over." His laugh was soft, a sound that felt like it belonged to me alone. "Good," he said, his gaze locking onto mine. "I like a challenge." He took my hand, his fingers intertwining with mine, his thumb tracing slow circles over my knuckles, a touch so tender it stole my breath. The lantern's glow painted his face in gold, and I felt the pull of him, magnetic and undeniable, like the tide drawing me to shore. He led me toward the table where a small speaker played, "Feeling Good," Nina Simone's voice weaving through the night, its soulful cadence, a mirror to my heart. We sat, the hibiscus petals brushing my arm, and Ryan leaned forward, his elbows on the table, close enough that I could see the flecks of silver in his eyes. "I've been thinking about what you said in San Francisco," he began, his voice low, earnest. "About being scared. I'm scared too, Diane, not of losing my company, or the deals, or the noise. I'm scared of losing you." My chest tightened, his words landing like poetry. "Ryan," I said, my voice soft, "you don't have to lose me. But I need to know this is real, that it's not just a moment. He reached across the table, his hand cupping mine, his touch a vow. "It's real," he said, his voice rough with conviction. "I was going through the motions before you meetings, deals, and engagement that was just a contract. Then you walked into that gallery with your fire, your heart, and suddenly everything had color." His thumb brushed my wrist, sending a shiver through me, and I felt my resolve soften, my heart opening like a flower to the sun. The steel drum faded, replaced by the ocean's rhythm, and Ryan stood offering his hand. "Dance with me," he said, his voice a plea, and I took it, letting him pull me to the sand. The lanterns cast a warm glow, and we moved together, his hand settling on my waist, his fingers splaying across the chiffon, the heat of his touch seeping through the fabric. The moonlight made my skin shimmer, and I felt every point of contact, his chest brushing mine, his breath against my temple, the soft scrape of his stubble as he leaned closer. "You're my home, Diane," he murmured, his voice a low hum, his lips grazing my ear, sending a spark down my spine. The dance slowed our bodies, swaying to the waves, and his hand slid lower, resting at the curve of my hip, his thumb tracing a slow arc that made my pulse race. The air was charged thick with want, and I tilted my head, our eyes locking, the moonlight reflecting in his gaze like a promise. "I love you," he said, his voice raw, and the words hit me like a tide pulling me under. He leaned in, his breath warm against my lips, and kissed me, deep, urgent a kiss that tasted of salt and starlight. His mouth moved with mine, a melody of need and devotion, and I melted into him, my fingers tangling in his hair, the world dissolving until it was just us, just this. The kiss deepened, his tongue brushing mine, a spark that ignited every nerve, and his hand slid to my back, pulling me closer, the chiffon no barrier to the fire of his touch. The waves roared their rhythm, matching our heartbeats, and I felt alive, infinite, like I was the dream and the hope Nicky Giovanni wrote about. When we pulled back breathless, his forehead rested against mine, his breath ragged. "I want a life with you," he whispered, his voice a vow. "No contracts, no games." Tears pricked my eyes, but I smiled, my heart full. "I want that too," I said, my voice trembling, "but I need time, Ryan. To trust this, to trust us." He nodded, his eyes soft, and then he stepped back, reaching into his pocket. My breath caught as he pulled out a small velvet box, the moonlight glinting off its surface. "I'm not asking for an answer tonight," he said, opening it to reveal a ring, a simple band with a single diamond engraved with tiny words I couldn't read, but knew were inspired by my charm necklace. "This is a promise, Diane, that I'm yours always. Whenever you're ready, I'll be here." I stared at the ring, tears spilling over, and I thought of everything: Savannah's jazz, San Francisco's battles, Malik's pull, Elise's lies. I'd come so far from a broken heart to a love that felt like a miracle. "It's beautiful," I whispered, my voice thick, and Ryan smiled, slipping the box back into his pocket, his hand finding mine again. We stood there, the waves whispering, the lanterns flickering, and I felt a peace I hadn't known I could find. I wasn't saying yes, not yet. I needed time to believe this love could withstand the world's storms, to know it was as real as the charm at my throat. But as I looked at Ryan, his eyes reflecting the stars, I knew I was closer than ever to the dream I'd been chasing. The night stretched on, and we talked, laughed, danced, the ocean our witness. My phone stayed silent. No calls from Elise, no rumors to shatter this moment. Jasmine would want every detail, and Mama would ask if my heart was sure. But for now, it was just us two souls finding each other under a Miami sky. I thought of Nicky Giovanni, of her words that had carried me, "I am the dream and the hope." And standing here with Ryan's hand in mine, I believed it. Believed in us, in love, in the chance to write a story that was ours alone. If Diane's journey made your heart soar, hit that subscribe button and comment "Second Chances" to see where love takes her next.